When someone suddenly stops giving you importance, our first instinct is often to wonder, what did I do wrong? It's a natural response. Humans are wired to seek connection and interpret changes in relationships as potential threats to that connection. However, more often than not, their change in behavior isn't about you, it's about them. People's actions are deeply influenced by their internal struggles, emotions, and circumstances, many of which may be invisible to you. They might be navigating stress, grief, or other personal challenges. They may have encountered something that has shifted their focus, leaving less room for others in their lives. It's important to remember that everyone carries their own emotional burdens, and sometimes people retreat not because you've done something wrong, but because they need to take care of themselves. This doesn't mean their withdrawal won't sting, it often does. Relationships thrive on reciprocity, and when that balance is disrupted, it can leave you feeling unimportant or dismissed. But pausing to recognize that their actions likely stem from their own realities rather than your shortcomings can prevent you from internalizing the situation and spiraling into self-blame. Understanding this requires empathy. Instead of focusing on how their behavior affects you, try to imagine what they might be experiencing. Ask yourself, could they be overwhelmed? Could they be dealing with something I don't know about? Shifting your perspective in this way can transform hurt feelings into a sense of compassion for them and for yourself. Above all, it's crucial to remember that you are not the center of someone else's world. Their priorities, needs, and struggles will sometimes take precedence, and that's okay. It doesn't diminish your worth or value. It's a reminder that relationships are complex, and not everything is about you or within your control. This realization can be liberating. It allows you to step back, breathe, and focus on what you can control, your response, your boundaries, and your well-being. When someone begins to pull back or stop giving you the same level of importance, it's easy to interpret their behavior as rejection. You might feel hurt, abandoned, or even betrayed. However, it's important to recognize that these shifts often reflect their need to establish or reinforce boundaries rather than a direct rejection of you as a person. Boundaries are a fundamental part of healthy relationships. They define where one person ends and another begins, ensuring that emotional, mental, and physical energy is balanced and protected. When someone adjusts their level of engagement with you, it doesn't always mean they value you less. It may simply mean they are prioritizing their own needs, time, or emotional well-being. It can be hard to accept this, especially if you've always been accustomed to a certain dynamic in the relationship. But people's lives evolve. They may be dealing with changes in work, family, health, or personal growth that demand their attention. In these moments, they might need to create more space for themselves, not because they don't care about you, but because they're trying to care for themselves. This is not a reflection of your worth or the value of the relationship. It's an act of self-preservation on their part, a sign that they're trying to maintain a balance in their life. Healthy boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are bridges that allow connection to flourish while respecting individual needs. Of course, understanding this doesn't mean the shift won't hurt. It's normal to feel the absence of their attention or to grieve the loss of closeness you once shared. But reframing their actions as a way to honor their boundaries rather than rejecting you can help you process those feelings with empathy instead of resentment. This also presents an opportunity for you to reflect on your own boundaries. Are you giving more than you're receiving in this relationship? Are you respecting your own needs and limits? Sometimes when others create boundaries, it serves as a mirror, prompting us to evaluate our own habits and patterns. Ultimately, recognizing that shifts in a relationship often come from a place of self-care, not rejection, fosters healthier interactions. It allows you to respond with understanding instead of defensiveness, creating space for dialogue and mutual respect. In doing so, you honor not only their needs but also your own, paving the way for a more balanced and resilient connection. When someone's behavior towards you changes when they suddenly stop giving you the same attention or importance, it's natural to seek answers. Often, in the absence of clear communication, we fill the silence with assumptions. These assumptions may feel like a way to make sense of the situation, but they often do more harm than good. The mind has a tendency to gravitate toward negative interpretations. You might assume that they're upset with you, that you've done something wrong, or that you're no longer important to them. These thoughts can quickly spiral into self-doubt, insecurity, and even resentment. The danger lies in how these assumptions begin to shape your perception, not only of the other person, but of yourself and the relationship. Unfounded assumptions create unnecessary emotional burdens. They can make you feel rejected when there's no real evidence to support that. Perhaps the other person is simply overwhelmed with personal responsibilities, dealing with stress, or needing time to recharge. Without clarity, assumptions can distort the reality of the situation, leading you to act on feelings of hurt or anger that may not align with the truth. Moreover, assumptions often lead to miscommunication. When you act on what you think the other person is feeling or thinking, rather than seeking clarity, you risk exacerbating the situation. For example, if you assume someone has intentionally distanced themselves out of frustration with you, you might respond with coldness or avoidance. This reaction can create tension where none initially existed, turning a misunderstanding into a real conflict. The antidote to assumptions is curiosity and communication. Instead of making up a story about what's happening, ask. It can feel vulnerable to reach out and say, "I've noticed a change in our dynamic. Is everything okay?" This kind of direct, open dialogue can often clear up misunderstandings and reveal truths you hadn't considered. Of course, asking for clarity requires courage. It means being willing to hear answers that might be uncomfortable or even painful. But it's better to know the truth than to live in the uncertainty of your own assumptions. Truth, even when it's hard, gives you a solid foundation to make decisions and move forward, whether that's to support the other person, adjust your expectations, or set your own boundaries. When someone suddenly stops giving you importance, it can feel like your value has diminished. You might find yourself questioning your worth, wondering if you've done something wrong or if you're simply not good enough. This kind of thinking is natural but deeply flawed, as it ties your self-worth to the actions and perceptions of others. True self-worth, however, is something that exists within you. It is not dependent on how others treat you or whether they choose to give you attention. Your value as a person is intrinsic. It doesn't rise or fall based on someone else's behavior, approval, or recognition. Yet, society often conditions us to think otherwise. From a young age, we're taught to seek validation through praise from parents and teachers, through likes on social media, or through attention in relationships. While external validation can feel good in the moment, it is fleeting and unreliable. When we depend on others to define our worth, we place ourselves at the mercy of their changing moods, priorities, and circumstances. When someone pulls away or stops giving you the importance they once did, it's easy to see this as a reflection of your inadequacies. But it's crucial to understand that their actions are often about them, not you. They may be dealing with personal challenges, shifting priorities, or emotional needs that have nothing to do with your value. Recognizing this distinction can help you avoid internalizing their behavior and preserve your sense of self-worth. Building and maintaining a strong sense of self-worth requires turning inward. It's about knowing who you are, embracing your strengths and flaws, and recognizing that you are enough just as you are. This isn't always easy, especially in moments of perceived rejection, but it's a critical step toward emotional resilience. Self-worth is also about cultivating a compassionate relationship with yourself. When you make a mistake, fall short of a goal, or face challenges in relationships, how do you speak to yourself? Often, we are our own harshest critics. Learning to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a close friend can be transformative. It helps you remember that your value is not tied to perfection or constant validation, but to your inherent humanity. It's also worth noting that self-worth empowers you to set boundaries. When you recognize your intrinsic value, you're less likely to tolerate relationships or situations that make you feel small. You can more confidently walk away from people who don't respect or appreciate you, knowing that their lack of recognition doesn't diminish your worth. Ultimately, self-worth is about being anchored in yourself, even when the tides of external validation ebb and flow. It's about realizing that you are whole and worthy regardless of who chooses to see or acknowledge it. When you cultivate this sense of inner stability, the actions of others, while they may still hurt, lose their power to define you. You stand rooted in the knowledge that your value is yours and yours alone. When someone suddenly stops giving you the importance they once did, it can create a painful void filled with uncertainty and unanswered questions. It's tempting to shy away from addressing the situation directly, perhaps out of fear of confrontation, rejection, or hearing something you don't want to know. Yet, in such moments, the most powerful step you can take is to engage in a courageous conversation. Courageous conversations are rooted in vulnerability and honesty. They require you to set aside assumptions, confront your fears, and seek clarity by addressing the issue head-on. Instead of retreating into silence or resentment, a courageous conversation allows you to open a dialogue, bridge gaps in understanding, and bring hidden truths to light. Starting this kind of conversation is not easy. It takes immense bravery to say, I've noticed a change in our dynamic, and I want to understand what's going on. These words may feel like exposing a raw nerve, leaving you vulnerable to rejection or discomfort. However, vulnerability is the foundation of genuine connection. When you approach someone with openness and a sincere desire to understand, you create the possibility for resolution, growth, and even healing. The key to a successful, courageous conversation lies in your mindset. Approach the discussion not as an argument to win or a problem to fix, but as an opportunity to listen and learn. Start by expressing how you feel without placing blame. I feel hurt and a little confused because I value our relationship and I've noticed some distance lately. By focusing on your feelings rather than accusing the other person, you create a non-threatening environment that encourages them to share their perspective. Equally important is the willingness to hear their truth, even if it's uncomfortable. They may reveal something that challenges you, such as needing space, facing personal struggles, or reevaluating their priorities. It might not be what you want to hear, but accepting their honesty is crucial. A courageous conversation is not about controlling the outcome. It's about fostering understanding, even if that understanding leads to changes in the relationship. Sometimes these